Welcome to Axiom Flux News, and today I'm on my own on the panel, so there's just myself. So without a delay, I'll take you on to my first article for today, and this is P-Power. UK University trials electricity generating toilet. P-Power men's urinal. Urinetricity light for safety at night. In some countries, women risk rape when going to the toilet. P-Power, a sustainable system to produce light to help keep women safe at night. Many more labels at the bottom, sponsored by Oxfam. Whatever that is, it's hard to see what these are. I'm not really familiar with them. But anyway, this is a British university, and it's developed a prototype. It's only a prototype, but you know, that's where everything takes off from a prototype. But it's a toilet that is able to convert human urine into electricity in the hope the technology can be used in refugee camps. Okay, so yeah, so they can use it in these locations where they're less fortunate to, you know, go and have a quick visit to the wee room. So these guys are making one up, turning it into electricity and supplying lights and many other things. Oh well, with the research that's apparently has been put into this, this is some of the hopes. So it is hoped the technology can be used to light toilets in refugee camps around the world where people are at risk of rape and sexual assault. The microbial fuel cells sit underneath the urinal and can be viewed through a clear screen. The urinal in this trial resembles the toilets that will be used by Oxfam in refugee camps and disaster zones. Andy Bastable, head of water and sanitation, Oxfam said, Oxfam is an expert at providing sanitation disaster zones, and it is always a challenge to light inaccessible areas far from a power supply. This technology is a huge step forward. Living in a refugee camp is hard enough without the added threat of being assaulted in the dark places at night. The potential of this invention is huge. He said one microbial fuel cell costs about £1 to make, and we think that a small unit like the demo we have mocked up for this experiment could cost as little as £600 to set up, which is a significant bonus as this technology is in theory everlasting. Now there's a reason why I'm showing you this article, and I really want to be, I've been wanting to do more work on energy and not so much alternative, but this is an alternative. But the reason being, and it's come right with being 5th of March, by the way, on the article here, and this is the OFGEM on the same day. Notice of decision to impose a financial penalty following an investigation into compliance by SSE with Article 14 of the Electricity and Gas Community Energy Saving Programme Order 2009. So the authorities decided to impose a financial penalty on SSE following an investigation into the company's compliance with its obligations under Article 14, Section 1 of the Electricity and Gas Community Energy Saving Programme Order 2009. So the CESP was a policy set down in legislation designed to improve domestic energy efficiency standards in the most deprived geographical areas across Great Britain. So we're not talking refugee camps in certain places of the world now, we're just focusing on UK and Great Britain. The relevant legislation was the Electricity and Gas Community Energy Saving Programme Order 2009, the CESP order, known for short. And under the Article 14, one of the CESP order, generators and suppliers had to achieve their carbon emissions reduction obligation by promoting qualifying actions to domestic energy users in low-income areas. So the authority found that the Scottish and Southern Electric SSE breached the Article 14.1 of the assessment order, having failed to achieve its carbon emissions reduction obligations by promoting qualifying actions to domestic energy users by the 31st of December 2012. SSE as a whole delivered 90.9% of its obligation and had a shortfall of 252,168 TCO2. SSE's shortfall as a percentage of its obligation, 9.1%, was smaller than any other OP or under CESP. So what's happening with this? Well, the authority noted that SSE undertook mitigation activity to mitigate its carbon saving shortfall in full. SSE also delivered, which results in 346 more households receiving measures. The authority had regard to this in setting the final level of penalty, a payment of 1.75 million, less a nominal £1 penalty on each of the SSE licensees, will be made by SSE to vulnerable consumers through the Foundation's Independent Living Trust. I'll get back to this in a moment. Energy Action Scotland and the Citizens Advice Bureau for use in Wales with the aim of pursuing the following objectives: promotion of carbon emissions reduction in domestic homes, the promotion of energy efficiency in domestic homes or fuel poverty. A financial penalty of £1 by each of the SSE licensees is to be made by the 17th of April 2015. So going into this, for those that have are actually with SSE and many of the other big six as well, I'm just focusing in on SSE today, with it being a report from OFGEM based on the inquiry that was going in to investigation into the company compliance with its obligations. So for those that remember this, let's take to this. This is an article from the Daily Record, and power penny pinchers. SSE slap 1.92 on £10 meter cards, hitting 900,000 of their poorest customers. So for those that remember, in November of 2013, when they decided to slap £1.92 on just under 1 million of the poorest customers, and then bear that in mind, hold that thought, because in this article, £900,000 planned to cut winter fuel deaths. Fears of a sharp rise in deaths caused by soaring energy bills has prompted the government to unveil a £900,000 plan to combat fuel poverty. But don't get too excited, because this article too was published in October the 13th of 2013. So this one is November 2013, and then this one is October, right? So we've gone from the £900,000 plan, you know, to cut winter fuel deaths, right? Because apparently, announcing the move back then, Energy Secretary Ed Davey admitted the rate of excess winter deaths is too high. So it's too high. We can't have that many dying. Yeah, well, we don't mind a fair few, but it's too high. He said the government is identifying vulnerable households, those with people aged over 75 or children under 5, or those where someone is suffering a long-term sickness or disability. So, you know, the month after people were supposedly getting a pound, you know, they just went and put £1.92 on 900,000 of SSE. This is just SSE, just one company, one energy supplier of their customers. At the same time, while universities are making P-power toilets, so you're starting to see the madness of it all. But don't worry, because my article's not finished just yet. This is another one from OFGEM. Protecting customers, OFGEM's enforcement powers. Promoting choice and value for all gas and electricity customers. So remember that, and remember that. All right, as we move into this article. Fact sheet 113, dated 21st of the 6th, 2012. Protecting existing and future customers is OFGEM's first priority. So before anything else, they want to protect existing and future customers, basically anyone who's a customer. We do this by promoting competition wherever appropriate and regulating the monopoly companies which run the gas and electricity networks. OFGEM wants to ensure that companies compete fairly and meet their legal obligations. Right? So, in order to do this, it has the power to investigate companies that it believes are not upholding the legal standards they have to meet and to penalise them where it finds failings. Okay, so now I'm going to pause on this article to bring you back to another article on here, because I wanted to just show you, if I can find it now. I'm starting to get a little bit. Well, basically, there it is. Look, Foundation's Independent Living Trust. So I'm going to take you to this now. This is the Foundation's Independent Living Trust website, abbreviated FIL. Now, the fines that these companies get, they have to pay. The money goes to charities and people over organisations like this, like Foundation's Independent Living Trust. It's not the only one. There's another one. Turn to Us, another one who'll help out, and many more. For other information, support and possible funding options. Right, so let's find out basically who they are. So this is the chair, Stephen Burke. There's a few of the other staff. I'm not going to go into detail because it's not really of particular relevance of these people, but these are the trustees. And the funds, you can get funds for heating and installation where your own home, when you own your own home and have a mental condition. Funds to help with small works for gas safety in the home. Funds for electrical safety in your home, not available at present. And many others. And there was another website. This is the Citizens Advice. This is the advantages and disadvantages of prepayment meters. So the advantage of using a prepayment meter are, it can be a useful way to budget if you're on a low income. All right, so it can also be used to pay off arrears if the key or meter is programmed to pay off debt when it is charged. So, okay, well, what if we need help with energy bills? Winter fuel payments, warm home discount scheme, energy saving, eco-affordable warm scheme. This is all off the OFGEM website, by the way. Energy assistance program, NEST, which is a Welsh government fuel poverty scheme, and the priority service registration or register. If you are a pensionable age, disabled or chronically sick, you can ask your supplier to add you to their priority service register, known as the PSR. Free services available to priority service register customers include advance notice of planned power cuts for customers who depend on their energy supply for medical reasons. So, if if you don't need it for medical reasons and they plan on cutting you off, they've under no obligation or anything to really let you know. Priority in an emergency. This could include providing alternative heating and cooking facilities in the event of supply disconnection. Okay, so if you're not able to have any connection, then these guys are apparently going to provide alternative heating and cooking facilities. So if there's no electricity, then get yourself on this priority service register, because this is designed to protect you from being disconnected, to protect vulnerable people from being disconnected. Debt and disconnection. I didn't want to really rush through this, but there's quite a lot, so I don't want to really mumble on. I want to get to the key parts. If you find yourself in debt to your energy supply, which is probably most of us, you should discuss your circumstances with your supplier so that a suitable payment arrangement that takes into account your ability to pay can be put into place to repay the debt. If a supplier is not able to agree a repayment arrangement, they have an obligation to offer to install a prepayment meter to enable a consumer to repay the debt and avoid the need for disconnection. Suppliers are also prohibited from disconnecting a premises occupied by a customer eligible for the PSR, which is what I've just spoke to you about, the Priority Service Register, during the winter months of 1st of October to the 31st of March. In addition to this, many suppliers have signed up to a safety net, right, which offers further protection for vulnerable customers. So I did try and click on this safety net, but it brought me to a website that, had its link removed. So I'm not exactly sure where this safety net has been moved to, if it still exists. So yeah, that was that one. Amongst other things, suppliers that are signed up to the safety net have pledged to never knowingly disconnect a vulnerable customer at any time of year. In this instance, vulnerable customers may be customers that, for reasons of age, health, disability, or severe financial insecurity, are unable to safeguard their personal welfare or the personal welfare of other members of the household. So people are saying, can they come and cut you off? Are they allowed to do it? And well, most of the people are sent to these guys, these as advice. Well, I was just reading from the article on the advantages and disadvantages of the prepayment meter. So going back to this, and I've been jumping from one tab to another tonight, but it has to be done. It can be used to pay off arrears if the key or meter is programmed to pay off debt when it is charged, and it can be a useful way to budget your money if you're on a low income, right? So that's just two. Now the disadvantages are, there's several disadvantages to using a prepayment meter. You'll usually pay more for your energy than if you had a credit meter. If you can't afford to buy tokens or recharge your card or key, you won't have any energy. Okay. So let's just run over this slowly. You'll usually pay more if you put on a prepayment meter because you're struggling to make, keep up with the costs, your bills, and so they was obliged to put you on a prepayment meter, which ends up costing you more. And we're going back to this and that. But according to certain people from certain companies, they don't really class that as vulnerable. But anyway, if you can't afford to buy tokens or recharge your key, you'll go without. So yeah, that's basically saying, disconnect you. Your nearest charging point may not be near you. So, if you've got no electric, you do manage to get some money from, from a money tree. Make sure you've got a nice warm coat for the long walk. Allow for the additional cost of getting there when you're thinking about the cost of using a prepayment meter. You can't spread the cost of the larger winter bills over the whole year. The meter can be set to recover arrears. This means you'll have to pay for using energy and for your arrears at the same time. You'll have to pay more towards the arrears when you're using more energy. So it can sort of like get out of hand and basically just leave you in a position where you end up getting disconnected, but these guys won't admit to disconnecting you. So if you can get your heads around any of this, please let me know. So how to get a prepayment meter? My opinion is don't bother, avoid them. It's just a con. Help if you're on a prepayment meter. If you're on one, and the 6 major energy suppliers have 5 key principles to make sure you're treated fairly if you're on a prepayment meter, and they are to check whether you're vulnerable before forcing you to have a meter and offering a different payment method if appropriate. So the way they do this is they say, oh, we're going to come and cut you off and you're going to be left in dark and you're going to be freezing cold. And so they get you to accept, to consent to putting a meter in. Then what they'll do is they'll arrange and negotiate some means of paying it back at a certain amount. And then once you've got, consent to that, they'll start to up this cost. So you've got to fight them, you've got to ring them up and tell them, look, listen, I can't pay, you can't keep pouring it up. To consider changes to your circumstances, which may mean exchanging the meter if it's no longer safe or practical for you to have one. All right, so don't forget, these are the principles that they have to follow. To extend the emergency credit if you run out overnight or it's a Christmas or New Year public holiday, which is not always a good thing. If you're vulnerable, but it's still considered safe for you to have a meter, offer more support, including advice on tariffs and benefit checks, or referral to another organisation offering benefit checks. So if you basically ring them up and you're a customer and you get the impression that you're being sort of referred or palmed off or fobbed off to somebody else, then it's probably because they deem you as considered you to be safe to have a meter, not vulnerable. To improve communication with prepayment meter customers. I don't know how that is, because once you've complained and you go to a deadlock stage, they actually ban you from contacting them. And I've got a letter here from SSE. I'm going to read it out. Well, I had a letter from SSE. Right, so yeah, look, this is it. This is in connection in relation to the video on the Axiom Curve community. Well, not the video, the upload of the fuel monsters. So if you come across that conversation with the fuel monsters, go and have a listen to that. Well, this is a letter I received after that. And this says, as part of our complaint handling procedure, your complaint regarding our policy of charging a daily standard charge has been passed to me as head of customer service. Having carried out a full review of your case, I am satisfied that we have fully explained our pricing structure and the reasons we include a standing charge as part of our prices. With this in mind, I am unable to meet your request to withdraw any previous, current or future charges from your account. Right. To that end, and although I am sorry you remain unhappy with the actions taken by our company, I can confirm that this is our final position. Any future correspondence received regarding this particular issue may not be responded to and will be filed for information only. I would, however, remind you again about the independent help and advice available to you, as outlined in the complaint handling statement. However, should you require assistance with any other aspects of your account, please do not hesitate to contact us. So I've been banned from talking about standing charges. I can't ring them up now and discuss it anymore because they just won't listen. And it's pointless going to, companies like this, because these just fine them, you get money, and then money goes to places like this and these, and none of these really help you. As you'll understand when you listen to that conversation with the fuel monsters of UK. So what's going to happen with the big six? I think they're just going to continue to get ruthless, and they don't really care. They've also going out the way to, you know, put things in a certain way, procedure, where it ends up being, well, they deem you to be at the fault. They'll do, or they've been known and proven to send visiting officers to your door without an arranged appointment. You've no idea that they're going to turn up, and apparently you'll only know when you receive a letter saying you're being charged £45 for that visit. Then they'll keep coming until you do something about it. So then this £45 per visit builds up, and before you know it, you basically on a prepayment meter, and you'll find yourself paying it for next 10, 11, 12, whatever years it is. And you're stuck on that prepayment meter, and it's very hard for any other supplier to take on your debt. And if they do, the company you're with usually refuses to let you go, so they've got you by the cojones. And yeah, so it's a bit of a vicious cycle really, and there's nobody really looking into the welfare and the protection of the people who are trapped in this vicious monopoly. Well, you could call it many things, but yeah, I'm just here today to put across this information and let you decide. If you've got any experiences you've had with companies like SSE and many others, please do comment. Try and get some sort of communication going between ourselves so we can share the stories and put something together on them. It doesn't look like anything's going to happen where you've got cases like this being put into place, and and then this coming in, and it's just chaotic. But that's not my only news for today, so don't worry about that. I've got some more news on its way. It's going to bring up my next set of articles. This one is British biofirm Oxitec bringing GMO mosquitoes to the Key West. So let's go into this as a video here, which I hope it'll play.
If you're going through the airport, you'll see a travel advisory for Ebola in West Africa, and there may be another you're not quite as familiar with, and that's for the Caribbean, for mosquito-borne diseases like dengue fever and chikungunya. Now, dengue in particular has been on the rise in southern states in recent years. Florida saw some of its first outbreaks in decades in 2009 and 2010. Now, dengue usually isn't fatal, but can be so incredibly painful. It's been nicknamed break-bone fever, and there aren't any treatments on the market for it. So here in Key West, it's the southernmost point in the United States. They're really on the front lines of trying to control it. And mosquito control experts here say they're doing everything they can to keep dengue at bay.
Dengue is kind of a sleeper disease. It can exist in low levels without us knowing it, and then flare up.
Now, one method they're working on has never been tried before here in the United States. They're working with British biotech company Oxitec to potentially release genetically modified mosquitoes programmed to wipe out their own race. Now, Oxitec is awaiting FDA approval to start a small trial here in a small area of the Keys.
What we've seen in all the trials we've done to date is we've actually brought down the population of this mosquito in the areas where we've released by over 90%.
Now, there has been some local pushback over the plan here, mostly over the genetic modification. But Keys experts and Oxitec say the method is safe and specifically targets this kind of mosquitoes. Now, meanwhile, big pharma companies are working on the problem. Both Sanofi and Merck are working on developing dengue vaccines, important as cases around the world have increased 30-fold in the last 50 years.
Okay, so that was that article. I'm actually taking me time tonight with me being on my own and the panel and myself so it's quite simple for me to deal with the technical side as well as put my articles out in the best way I can. My next article, oh sorry, just going back on that, the video pretty much spoke about what it was I was wanting to put out there. A petition has been started against the release of the Mosquitoes, citing concerns, but like most petitions, they don't really do anything. Next one. MPs lose their dinner money, but could still be in line for 10% pay rise. The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority announces that MPs will be barred from claiming a raft of perks. MPs will be banned from claiming expenses for dinners, TV licenses and taxes before 11 PM after the general election, the Expenses Watchdog has announced. The Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, known IPSA, has confirmed that MPs will lose a raft of perks, including £15 for meals after 7:30 PM. However, MPs could still be in line for a 10% pay rise, which would see their salaries rise from 67,000 to 74,000. The cuts to MPs' perks is likely to cause anger amongst MPs, who already complain that the system leaves them out of pocket. Staffing budgets are to go up 1% to 147,000 for London area's MPs and 140,000 for those from outside the capital. The office cost budget is rising 0.5% to reflect inflation, but accommodation budgets have been frozen. IPSA said, "We will implement the rule changes agreed in December 2013, including removing hospitality claims and the late sitting food subsidy. We have tightened the rules on taxis and hotels after late sittings of the House. We will no longer allow claims under the accommodation rules for TV licenses and home contents insurance." The package, announced by IPSA in 2013, suggested that trimming perks and pension benefits would offset the costs of the controversial pay rise. But while the expenses reductions will now come into force automatically on May the 8th, the salary boost will be subject to a review due to be carried out in the weeks after the poll. Mr Cameron has said he regards the hike as unacceptable at a time when public sector rises are restricted to 1%, while Mr Miliband and Mr Clegg have said they do not believe it should go ahead. A video, I'll play this.
There's never a good time, it's said, to do anything about MPs' pay. The pressing issues of the moment always make it a bad time. We've taken as one of our guiding principles that MPs play a crucial role in our democracy and that role should be recognised. The role of MPs sits at the heart of our democracy. It's in all our interests that this role is performed effectively. Having a parliament accessible to all, one which does not deter the less well-off from seeking election, one which doesn't require MPs without independent means to seek patronage, is crucial to the continuing health of our democracy. We've also been guided by two further principles: that when it comes to remuneration, MPs should be treated as professionals, and that any new package of remuneration should be modern in outlook and in application. We are absolutely aware of the circumstances of austerity in which we're all living. We're also aware of our commitment to bring in a new settlement, to take heed of the lessons of history and settle things once and for all. We know what happens when the element of pay is pushed aside as being simply too hard. what I would call the nods and winks school of public financing emerges. And ultimately, we end up with the circumstances like 2009. No one wanted that system that brought Parliament to its knees in 2009 to come into being. But it was, in our view, the inevitable result of hard decisions deferred. The way forward on MPs' pay is difficult. It has been for centuries. We won't shirk our responsibility to make a determination simply because the task is difficult. We're impressed by the idea that MPs' pay should move in line with the fortunes of those they represent, such that MPs' pay would be indexed to movements in national average earnings. If the average wage goes up, MPs' pay would go up. If the average wage falls, MPs' pay would fall. So our aim will, as you will see in the consultation document, to settle pay and pensions once and for all, take away the need for regular political dogfights that have historically accompanied.
There you go, the watchdog theoretically has the final decision on the issue, although there have been suggestions that the law could be changed in order to prevent the increase. So no doubt look out for something coming through in the matter of days and weeks ahead. The Cross-Party Common Standards Committee have previously condemned the expenses cuts, arguing that the rules are already considerably less generous than in many companies. Well, if you was to go to a job centre and you know, you got yourself a job and you got paid monthly, you'd be told to, you know, by the advisors at the job centre to ask your employer for a sub, so you can make, you know, the costs, the expenses to cover for the month that you've not got no money, because the job centre have, you know, signed you off and no longer giving you any money. And if you manage to get a job and you can, you know, get through the first month, so you get your wage, and you realise that this wage isn't enough, they'll tell you to get a second job, which is a bit like what these MPs do. So highlighting the plan to drop the £15 currently claimable for dinner when the house sits beyond 7:30 p.m, the committee said, if such expenses are not met by the employer, then the employee is able to claim tax relief on subsistence costs of travel between workplaces. Well, that's, you know, interesting, because I used to have a job and it was actually home help for the, you know, for people caring, and in between me traveling from one client to another, you didn't get paid. So one client could be 30 minutes away from your next, an hour away from your next, and you wouldn't get paid. So you're basically out all day and you find out that you don't get paid enough. The rules for MPs are already considerably less generous than this. We also note that when there is whip business, members must be within easy reach of the division lobbies. Once again, we consider there needs to be a stronger evidence base before it can be asserted that these are costs which other professionals would expect to meet for themselves, unless they had been dealt with through a salary supplement rather than expenses. And this, to me, yet again, resembles something I came across, where if you was to do voluntary work for somebody, and that job would normally, you know, pay a wage to somebody, then that's not voluntary. But if you're on this workfare thing and, you know, they find you a job in Tesco's, then that's completely fine, you know, but don't expect to get paid a wage. The committee said MPs routinely worked 60 or 70 hours a week, and the tightening of the expenses system in the wake of the scandal that rocked Westminster already meant some had taken to sleeping in their offices. Which is, you know, many stories on that one, sleeping at office. We do not consider that IPSA has made a case for changing the boundary of the existing scheme of business costs and expenses, the report said. The changes will see a halt to claims for tea and biscuits and hotels, only allowed if they are booked after 1 a.m. So that's that one. My next one, Boston survivor to accused. You saved my life. The 27-year-old named in the blast says the ordeal has only made her treasure each day with her young son, another survivor. Rebecca Gregory DiMartino says Tsanev is a coward. A survivor of the Boston Marathon blast has told the alleged bomber, Dzhokhar Tsanev, you saved my life. Rebecca Gregory DiMartino wrote in a Facebook post addressed to the accused that she had turned the ordeal of losing her leg into a positive experience. 27-year-old described how she had been afraid of testifying on Wednesday, just a few feet away from Tsanev at the opening of his trial. But she said that when the 21-year-old refused to look her in the eye as she took to the stand, she realized he was a coward. The images there. Tsanev and his brother allegedly placed 2 pressure cooker bombs near the marathon finish line on 15th of April 2013, killing 3 people and injuring 264 others. Miss DiMartino's former partner, Pete DiMartino, was already wounded in the bombings. Was also wounded in the bombing, sorry. The couple married in April 2014 but split last month. There's an image here and video. So as you're watching that video, despite having a leg amputated as a result of her injuries, Miss DiMartino is training for the Boston Marathon in April this year. She wrote, over the last 2 years I have seen your face not only in pictures, but in almost every one of my nightmares. Moments before the first blast, your stupid backpack even brushed up against my arm. But I doubt you remember, because I am no one to you. She said the ordeal had gifted her and other survivors a tremendous platform to help others. This is the video from the outside. You can't handle the fact that what you tried to destroy you only made stronger, she wrote. Miss DiMartino said she now especially treasures her relationship with her young son, also a survivor. She adds, in so many ways, you saved my life, because now I am so much more appreciative of every new day I am given. And now I get to hug my son even tighter than before. Miss DiMartino concluded, to me, you're a nobody. And it is official that you have lost. So, man, that really sucks for you, bro. I truly hope it was worth it. Before testimony resumed on Thursday, Tsanev's lawyers complained to the judge that the survivor's testimony from the previous day had been too gruesome and should be limited. Tsanev's defense attorney adopted the unusual tactic in her opening statement of telling the jury he did it, even though he denies all charges. She argued the defendant was heavily influenced by his older brother, Tamerlan Tsarnaev. Legal analysts say that since it seems unlikely Tsarnaev will escape conviction, his attorney is trying to save him from the death penalty. There you go. And my final article is the cannon fodder, which is pretty much what we are, with a question mark there, I will add. Military chiefs oppose US control as ex-army MP threatens to quit. As plans are formulated to put UK troops under American command, a former army colonel turned Tory MP has said he may quit over defence budget cuts while urging military chiefs to do the same. Colonel Bob Stewart MP, who sits on the Defence Select Committee, said UK defence was in a polis state. He was speaking at a meeting of the UK National Defence Agency. Stewart, who commanded troops in Bosnia in the 90s, made his declaration in the wake of an announcement that up to 6,000 UK troops could be placed under American command as part of a new 20,000-strong High Readiness Brigade. Former head of the Royal Air Force, Sir Michael Graydon, backed Stewart and called the idea of composite force humiliating. Air Commodore Andrew Lambert told the Daily Mail, "The trouble with this is you provide the man power but with none of the authority. Why should we provide the man power? Some people might call it cannon fodder, when what we would like to do is have a seat at the top table." However, the comments are at odds with the established practice of placing British troops under foreign command. In Iraq and Afghanistan, UK troops operated as part of coalitions which were in each case American-led. In Afghanistan, British service personnel were often placed under operational command of American officers, including, in May 2010, the entire 8,000-strong UK force in southern Afghanistan. And in 2010, Prime Minister David Cameron and then President of France Nicolas Sarkozy announced plans for a combined joint expedition force, which would potentially place UK combat troops, including members of Britain's elite Special Air Service, under French command as part of a joint task force. The same year also saw plans drawn up to share aircraft carriers with the French. Last week, General Raymond Odierno, Chief of Staff of the US Army, told the Telegraph he was very concerned at the cuts being made to the UK's armed forces. He criticised Chancellor George Osborne's refusal to confirm whether the UK will meet NATO member states' spending target of 2% of respective national GDP. What has changed, though, is the level of capability. In the past, we would have a British Army division working alongside an American Army division. He added, cuts mean the US Army now expects Britain to provide only half its previous commitment. Frank Ledwidge is a former military officer, barrister, and author of several books on the UK involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan. He told RT Russia Today the officer's comments might reflect a broader distaste in British society for our troops being used as auxiliaries, a recognition that other countries have divergent interests. And that's my wrap up of the Flux news. 50 minutes on my own. So there you go, guys. I've tried to put a bit out for today. But please, if you do watch this, you know, people probably think I just talk to myself on here, but yeah, if you do watch this and you're not you're not computer savvy, but you would like to talk about things and put articles out, do get in, contact with the Axiom Curb team, and somebody will arrange to get in touch, and we will find you a suitable place on Flux News as soon as we can. But do let us know. It'd be good to see and hear from many different people from different backgrounds, cultures and other ways of thinking. It's all good as long as we, have the cohesion and we stay together, we should get through pretty much any of these articles that come through, and we should be able to shine a light on some of the darkness and let people open their eyes and have a vision, a fresh vision of what it is that goes on around us from day to day. But until next time, that's all I've got. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully with somebody joining me on the panel. But until then, take care and do look after yourselves, and remember to keep part of the resistance. If you don't appreciate, you don't approve, you didn't consent to majority of this stuff that we find ourselves taking place in today's moment, then the place for you is probably on Axiom Cabe, on Flux News, with many ordinary people who too have a passion and a moral duty for each brothers and sisters to put this world and this place that we're living on into a better quality living environment where we can actually maintain his position as a species, rather than just total abomination and destruction. But I will leave you with that. Thanks for joining me, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Take care for now.